Transmission. Hello, everybody. It is Chris, aka Starrapter, here for Outer Rim Transmission. This is episode 125. Tonight we are talking about the Ahsoka series or season finale. I'm not sure, but I'm here joined, of course, by Milton and for Ben for this very monumentous occasion to try to make sense of this finale, to break it down, to talk about all the good, to talk about all the bad, and more on this week's podcast. Milton, it's been a while. How's it going, man? I know you've been busy in your neck of the woods, going traveling, different things like that. So,
No, I'm good, man. Glad to be back on the podcast. I think this past episode was very interesting in how they ended this first season. I think I'm safe to say first season. But yeah, I'm glad to be back, and hopefully we have a good conversation tonight.
oh yeah. What about you, Ben? I know we've exchanged a couple words. Maybe one of us doesn't see the way the other does, but how's it going, man?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a great way to end the first season. Just because I felt like it was a fun, nice way. It answered some questions, left some questions unanswered, just to bring the intrigue along for the future season of it. And yeah, so it was a nice way to end things off. But unfortunately, now we're like in in the waiting period until the next Star Wars show, which is probably I forgot about it. I mean, it's probably going to be the Bad Batch actually. So whenever we get the Bad Batch, I don't know when that would be, but maybe we get that before these live action shows.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I've been hearing now about January for Skeleton Crew. I don't know what source that is exactly or where that's coming
Okay,
from, but
I can kind of like address that like quickly. So basically, what that is. So I'm not sure if January will be the exact date. I'm not saying it will. I'm not saying it won't. But basically, the reason why people are jumping to that assumption is it was copyrighted for January 1st, 2024. So, that it's basically like a copyright claim that was filed for January 1st. So basically, like people are just kind of like making the assumption. But I mean, I'm not sure when it comes to like copyrights and trademarks, but I would assume a lot of them probably do go through like on the 1st of January because it's like the new year. So I'm thinking like if I had to guess, it's probably more that's just that hey, they filed it, so it's like, it's in place. I'm not sure if it would come out in January just because like, I don't think like a show's gonna like file a copyright thing for like say if it would come out in like July, like, for July 1st, 2024. So I'm assuming that's what it probably is, but I could be wrong about it. Like, I mean, they might have pushed it out of this fall where it was, talked about, November, December to, maybe they do just push it to January. Who knows?
yeah, I think when you put it that way, January 1st, I think that is just simply a placeholder for like, okay, it's coming out sometime in 2024. Let's just put in January 1st. We'll cover every base
Yeah.
by saying it's coming out in 2024 by putting on the 1st of January. So I think that's simple enough. But hey, maybe they will give us a holiday present there. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on in the Star Wars universe as a whole, right? You got the High Republic that's spinning up again. The comics are continuing as always, so it's kind of being like a little bit of lapse in the on-screen stuff for who knows how long, but the flame is still burning, still burning. Getting into some housekeeping. So there is a podcast to download at any of your streaming services. That's Google, that is Spotify, that is Amazon, Apple, and more. Please give us a review, especially if you're on Apple or on Spotify. Please give us a 5-star rating because that will give us a little bit more pull in the overall scope of things. Help spread our positive Star Wars community here at Outer Rim Transmission. If you're listening to us, thank you very much. You can also find us live every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern and join the chat for some good old Star Wars banter. However, some notes for the upcoming week. I will be in New York Comic Con, my usual get together over there in the Big Apple for whatever is to happen there. A couple cool Star Wars things happening on that Thursday. There's going to be Ewan McGregor spotlight panel. I've seen him talk before, so I'm not expecting any huge revelations unless like he just walks on stage and says, season 2 of Kenobi. That's not happening. But it'll be fun to hear him talk. Even his wife is going to be there, so it gets me to wonder if Mary Winstead might show up on stage and talk about Ahsoka. That'd be kind of cool. Or them just talking about being in Star Wars together as husband and wife. That'd be kind of cool. That's not confirmed, but it seems so likely for it to happen. But we got that coming up. There's also a panel on that Thursday that is going to be about from a certain point of view, Return of the Jedi. So there's going to be a lot of first-time Star Wars authors, I would assume, on the stage to talk about it, which is always neat. Friday, David Tennant is going to be doing a spotlight panel, Huang himself. So that'll be really fun, as well as all the other awesome roles he has played over the years. And then Sunday, there is going to be a publishing panel. As always, it isn't Star Wars and it isn't Comic-Con without that Star Wars publishing panel. And by the way, Saturday, if you're in New York City or live in New Jersey or anywhere nearby, you might want to come out to the Mosh Isley event. It's always a fun time. I've went to the one in Anaheim. It's basically a bunch of DJs there, and it's basically a Star Wars party. Everybody comes dressed up, whatever, costumes, whatever. You don't have to come dressed up if you don't want to. It's perfectly fine. But yeah, there's DJ spinning the latest in alternative rock, emo, metal, punk. It's a good time. There's Vader just chilling up on stage and stormtroopers getting angry with the raucous crowd. So there you go. Crowd surfing, I'm sure, is welcome. So come on by. I'll be there. You'll just look for the Mandalorian. I'll be rocking my Mando helmet, just getting in the crowd. Hopefully, it becomes a little bit of a protection against people's feet coming over my head. But anyway, yeah, so we will not be live next Sunday is all I'm trying to get at, but please do come say hi. I know Matthew from the Ion Canada Star Wars Underworld Podcast Network. Me and him are going to be tagging around, doing some guerrilla style camera stuff with YouTube and stuff while we're at the con. So it's going to be a good time. Introduce yourself. If you find me, I'll probably give you a button or a sticker, whatever I have left. I probably should replenish it after the celebration. But anyway, yes, it should be a good time by all. And finally, last but not least, we had 3 releases this week. We have the beginning of the High Republic Phase 3, which is the final phase for the High Republic. It's coming to an end, but it's going to be a long phase. It's going to be going until like spring of 2025. But yes, we have the Shadows of Starlight, brings us in on what has been happening a year after the events of Phase 1. I will not spoil them here because I know people are catching up. It's a very lengthy Star Wars publishing foray into all that stuff. So yeah, we got that. We have Bounty Hunters issue number 39 and Darth Vader issue number 39, both of which I have a review on the channel right now. And I'm also talking about those on Ion Canon on the Star Wars Underworld Network with Matthew, aforementioned Matthew Ninja Bauer over there. We're breaking them down in even more detail, so in more of a podcast format. And Thursdays we go live, of course. We're not doing that this Thursday, or we're going to pre-record. But anyway, I've talked enough. We're going to be talking as a whole about Ahsoka Episode 8. This is called The Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlord. That's kind of a funny take on C.S. Lewis. But yes, I'm going to throw it over to Milton, since we haven't seen you in a while. I haven't heard from you in a while. Take the floor with this one, man. What was your first impressions of the finale?
Yeah, so my initial thoughts was a good episode. Honestly, in the moment, I wasn't quite sure about it, just because it felt a little off to me, and maybe because my expectations were different. And I was thinking, well, I was thinking we're gonna go this route, but they went this route. And it's something that my brother and I kind of had a small conversation about over the week. Was like, it seemed a little off. However, it wasn't a terrible episode. It wasn't a bad episode necessarily. I liked the majority of the episode. There were some choices that were made that I was kind of like, that's kind of BS. But I'm thinking they're just setting it up for season 2. So I had to remind myself, okay, this is looks like it's going to get a season 2. That's why they did certain things. Certain dynamics of the characters were there for a reason. But overall, I thought the episode was solid. I can't give it a 10 out of 10, but it was a solid episode. I think if this was the ultimate finale of the series, I would have been probably a little more disappointed. But knowing that this is leading into another season, or perhaps, I guess, the heir to the Empire movie, or however the structure is going to happen, okay, I like it for what it was. I don't know if I would rewatch it again per se, but it was solid. That's probably the best way I can put it.
Yeah, I think I'm more on your level, Milton. as far as what I took from the episode, I feel like the episode had its ups, namely the zombies. I thought that was great. The Walking Dead, basically, in Star Wars was awesome. Fight choreography, amazing, between Morgan Elsbeth and Ahsoka. Great stuff there. I did feel like some of the plot lines was clunky, like, oh, let's just charge a Star Destroyer with no plan at all and just get lucky by the skin of our teeth, like just charging something like that, or we've seen this in Star Wars a bunch. Oh, don't worry, guys. I'll hold off the really powerful baddie. You guys go do something else. Like, you guys could just team up, 3 against 1 and just take her out in 30 seconds. Like, it's not going to delay that much. So like the usual stuff like that, which yeah, we can talk about that silly stuff all day. In the end, it really doesn't matter a whole lot, but in the moment, I was just kind of like, huh? Some good banter, some good resolution between certain characters, although I wanted more. It was nice to have that conversation between Ahsoka and Sabine, which was the whole crux of this season. But I feel like they just didn't really nail it enough. Of course, we had the moments with Sabine finally channeling the Force. I think we've all kind of seen that coming. And generally for me, I mean, Ben, me and you, we're picking these things apart as we go along here every episode, and I think both of us pretty much called exactly what was happening in this episode. So yeah, I would say it's a little predictable. I was really hoping for at least one big resolution to the reveal. We had two things that have been going on all season. We had the cargo. What's in the cargo? We didn't get that taken care of. And what the heck, Balin? Like, I know there's probably going to be more, but the fact that this guy passed away, Ray Stevenson, unfortunately, and then they only give him like 5 seconds of screen time in the finale, whereas the entire like series they've been teasing, oh, he's been feeling this, and the average viewer is not going to have any significance of what the relevancy of these statues are, whereas we know what these things are, but the average viewer is going to be like, huh? So I kind of feel a little bit timid, a little bit anxious that they might just leave some of these storylines on the cutting room floor. So it took me out of the actual viewing experience, which kind of hurt my overall viewing of the episode, just because it felt like there wasn't enough things tied up to get at least a little resolution. I understand that there's always supposed to be a tease, there's always supposed to be something, but I feel like there was just too many teases and not enough of, something satisfying per se. So yeah, that's basically my thoughts on this episode, and I'll throw it over to you, Ben.
Yeah, for me, I'm definitely, I would say, more higher on this episode than both you guys. But of course, like Milton said, this is not like a 10 out of 10 because there are flaws to it. But like overall for me, I thought it was a really good way to end things for especially the first season. Just because like, you closed off some questions, like, people, like a running critique of Sabine, for example, from the beginning was like, oh, why would, why, what's she doing with all this Jedi stuff, blah, 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 blah. We finally get that answer. Like, she basically wanted revenge on the Empire. So like, we get those answers told, some of those things like that. And then, we have other questions opened up to us that lead into the next season, like the Balin stuff, like the, the cargo stuff, like the how are they gonna escape Peridia stuff, like those type of things. I think are good examples to like say carry on into another season, just because it's like like stepping outside of like the Star Wars realm or Star Wars online like talking sphere. If you just when that episode ended, like if you just search like Ahsoka season 2, like there were plenty of normies just putting in like bold letters, oh my gosh, I can't believe the show ended like this. We need a season 2 right now, ASAP, blah, 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 blah. Like, that sort of stuff. So, like, that shows, like, it did its job for, a lot of the, like, general audience people. If you just look around social media, see, like, when you get that type of reaction, like, we need a season 2 right now, like, that type of thing is what they're going for. Because, like the big majority of the audience is what like pays the bills, that Lucasfilm. Yeah. So that type of thing, it hooked people good enough. But my one concern about this episode, like I loved the Balin and like the Mortis God stuff. I love that, even though it was like literally like 10 seconds, if that. But my my concern about it, I haven't seen anybody like leak it from like our known like Star Wars leaking people, and but I wonder, like honestly, I wonder if there was more, like if there was more, like say, I don't even know, 5-10 minutes more of Balin stuff. And my thing is I wonder if they cut it, and if they do with the season 2 say coming, if it does come, if a season, I'm not saying it's confirmed, but if a season, let's say a season 2 does come, I wonder if they cut it to chop up those say 10 minutes or whatever into season 2 of Ahsoka or something, just because it's like, I don't know, like the balance was way off when it came to the obviously like the Balin stuff and everything else in the episode, because we've had a pretty good, like in my opinion, for the most part, we've had a pretty good balance of like the characters on all these episodes, like episodes 1 through 7. And then we get to this one and it's like, oh, so they're in it for literally like 10 seconds. Like, what's that about?
Yeah.
So it honestly just makes me wonder if that was like a call from like Dave and the creatives being like, hey, let's cut out it. Like, if we get to Ahsoka season 2 and Ray Stevenson's in it, we know his scenes are from this season, because obviously, so he, I hate saying it that way, but it's true. But yeah, so like those are kind of like my like general thoughts. And then I absolutely love, like for me, I think one of the best parts of the episode I loved so much was Thrawn's send off at the end. Like this was like, I guess this is my thing with the whole like talk. I mean, I'll wrap up my point really quick, but
no problem.
We see Empire Strikes Back, Vader getting the revelation of Luke to "I'm your father" thing. We don't know if that's true or not. So that's the ultimate unanswered question. So like, these unanswered questions of like how Ahsoka and these guys are going to escape and all these other things, like just like kind of like fall on deaf ears for me, because it's like, hey, the ultimate reveal was a unanswered question, so like I'm cool with it. But for me though, with like, I think my favorite part of the episode, obviously the zombies were amazing, but the Thrawn stuff at the end, like I loved Thrawn's like, just the way he said, today's victory is mine, long live the Empire, boom, like just smugly. And Thrawn, it felt like Thrawn finally got his mojo back,
Yeah, I think I would say they did have a success with Thrawn in this, right? Like he did end up. I mean, I will say there could have been another version where he like maybe personally killed somebody. Then you would have really been like, yeah, that is Thrawn.
Yep.
Like he outsmarted him. But I mean, he still did outsmart him, right? He used the tactics that he used to delay them long enough to get him out of there. So he still did win to extent. I like the balance, because it's like there is still hope. Like Ezra still got out of there, but yet you also have Thrawn sending that like last little like message to Ahsoka and Sabine as they were that close. It's like, oh no, they had the one chance.
Well, the cool thing is, not to like continue monologuing too long, but the cool thing about that whole sequence, I mean, we'll get into all that more as we like break down the entire episode. It's just the realization too of our characters, like, oh man, we just let like the biggest bad guy back into our galaxy.
Oh yeah. So I think we should start as we always do, from the beginning.
Yep.
This was a scene I've never expected to see in Star Wars. Now I'm a little bit kind of confused. So was Morgan Elsbeth? I thought she was already a Night Sister. I know she didn't have the markings, but I mean this shadow thing that they do with her definitely is the initiation of her being a full-fledged Night Sister. I did like this. I did like the kind of sorcery involved. Just this idea of Star Wars with the witchcraft is something that we've never seen in live action before, and I think they really added a lot to the lore of Star Wars. But this general feeling of, oh yeah, Star Wars is always dealing with smugglers, it's always dealing with Jedi, with Sith, with governments like the Republic and the Empire, but we never see this kind of Star Wars enough. So Milton, what'd you think about this whole beginning of the episode?
I thought it was pretty solid. I mean, to me, that made sense because, again, we're dealing with Night Sisters, and if you are a Star Wars fan, like the three of us are, and you've seen Clone Wars and whatnot, you understand, what the Night Sisters are. You understand Dathomir. When you hear the planet Dathomir, we know what that is. Now, for someone who isn't a fan of Clone Wars, they wouldn't understand like how important that is, or why these witches are even involved. And then obviously, if you go back to, was it Mandalorian season 2, Doesn't Elsbeth kind of hint that she might have like the Night Sisters like past, or like she has that in her past or something? I can't remember if she says anything about it, but again, like it's important that like it's in the show just because it makes sense. It makes sense to why the witches unlocked her potential. Like she was working towards that, and for her to say this is for Dathomir, she had her own agenda too, and clearly Dathomir was shown for a reason. It was mentioned for a reason. So all the stuff with her getting her powers unlocked, getting the sword of Talzin, which was pretty cool. Fighting Ahsoka as a true Night Sister was very impressive. It just shows that these Night Witches and Night Sisters are very important to the lore of Star Wars. So it made sense to have them in this episode, have them in this show. I love how they used them, so I can't really complain about the Night Sisters at all.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you, Milton. Like all your points on that, like I think they did a really good job with her. Chris, I'm not sure about you, but during that whole sequence, I think I was having like flashbacks to us talking about it on the podcast. They're 100% setting up the Night Sisters to be the Nogri, because like, you have Morgan Elsbeth saying under her breath for Dathomir, and it just, to me, they're like really heading in that direction. I think eventually, long term, they are going to have the Night Sisters take out Thrawn. Like it feels like that could be maybe the big thing in the end. But yeah, like what they did here in this episode, it was just really cool. Like just seeing like that transformation, seeing her fully get confirmed to be like a Night Sister. Now it answers, the question like fans like were asking before, like, oh, how is she a Night Sister? How is she a Night Sister? She doesn't look anything like it. And then, well, technically she wasn't a Night Sister yet, so that's why.
Yeah.
So it was cool, like getting to actually see that ceremony. Also, Chris, I'm gonna have to like send you this after stream, but I saw like a theory going around on social media over Star Wars Twitter last week that apparently there's a short story from, I don't know if it's like from a kid's book in canon right now or something or whatever, but anyways, it's a short story someone had posted an excerpt from, and it's about like a character named Bug. I'm pretty sure they said the kid's name was.
Yeah.
Okay, if you know about that story, basically someone put up the points of that story and pretty much said Bug is Morgan Elsbeth, and I was like, man, that makes a lot of sense, like just the way they pieced that together.
Because that's from, yeah, dude. So that is from, there's a Clone Wars middle age anthology. Matthew, I don't know if you're listening after the fact. He might know this. It's really deep cut. It was like, there's this book.
They said it was written by Dave or something, I think.
I'm not entirely sure.
Okay.
But basically, the whole premise of the anthology is it's literally adaptations of episodes, and then this is the one story they tacked on at the end that was an original story. Everything else was stuff we've seen before, was just written down, essentially adapted, right? So that is interesting. I want to shout out the chat. We got a lively chat tonight. We have Sim saying dark magic is necessary to address. I agree. That's why it's really cool getting this new foray into a different aspect of Star Wars. The Lowdown Show. Hey, how's it going, dude? I thought the Night Sisters were a highlight of the series. I wish they would have put the text Dathomir on the planet. I'm not sure. Anyway, but no, that was cool. That was a shocker to me to see that they're going back to Dathomir, and we'll get more into speculation. Yeah. We can save a segment at the end for talking more about what the hell is going to happen next. But that was neat.
Right. And just jump on that point real quick about the text for the planet. Disney's been doing that lately when like they don't want to reveal what the planet is. Like if it's a planet that we know of, they'll put the text. Like if it's Coruscant, okay, they'll put Coruscant. Yeah. But whenever they did it for, I think it was for for Obi-Wan, they didn't say Mustafar when they went to like Vader's castle. Like they just kind of said it, and it's like, don't try to hide it, just say it, because again, a lot of fans who aren't really fans like that won't know. So they have to understand what they're looking at. You have to visually show them so they can go back and reference it in the other parts of like Star Wars.
Yeah, I agree. So next up, we have a really cool scene involving Huyang and Ezra. And I didn't catch this at first. I don't know. It was very obvious. I don't know why I didn't catch it. The fact that Ezra is basically making a saber identical to his master's um, Kanan Jarrus, and the fact that I think they even mentioned his name is Caleb Doom, didn't they, at one point?
Yep.
Somebody did. That is great. That the idea that we are diving so deep into this canon, this stuff that has been established as the first canonical like Star Wars stuff in the Disney buyout, right? Like Rebels was the first big thing, um, and Kanan Jarrus is just you feel the legacy and just the importance of this character. His name was mentioned multiple times throughout this season. I'm just really happy about that. And the idea of like Yuang, right? We've seen the episodes of the Clone Wars when he was introduced, by the way, voiced by David Tennant. Maybe I'll run into him this weekend. But it's really neat seeing that character with all the lightsaber parts. It reminded me of my trip to Galaxy's Edge, right? When I'm making the saber, there's all these different compartments of the sabers and the emitters and the switches and the hilts and the plating and all this kind of stuff all strewn around the place. And it reminded me just of that. Remember, this is a cruiser that is a Jedi cruiser, so of course it'd be fully equipped to have this station for the initiates and the Padawans to make the lightsaber. So I thought that was a cool little world building scene they had.
Yeah, I enjoyed that scene a lot, especially whenever Ezra was looking for the special, like, I don't know, what was it called, like an inhibitor or something, like the same type of inhibitor part, like as Kanan has his saber, and it looks exactly like that. And it's funny how he says, "Oh, I kept a spare for Kanan just in case he lost his or needed something," which was kind of cool. And he just happened just to say, "Oh, it's right here." He held it the whole time.
Yeah.
It was cool to get that tie back, especially if you've, like you mentioned, go back to Rebels, but also go back further to the book New Dawn. That's when we first get introduced to
Oh
Kanan Jarrus, or
yeah.
AKA Caleb. So it was cool to get that reference. I like that scene in particular just because you got to hear Hugh Yang say like, "Oh, you're a really good student," and then you have Sabine in the back kind of feeling a certain way about it whenever she hears it, and she kind of walks away. So, and then that kind of transitions into what's her deal, and he explains like what happened between Ahsoka and and Sabine. So, no, I thought it was a beautiful scene. I think it was necessary. I like the way the saber looked. Yeah, I've actually enjoyed Hu Yang throughout this whole series. Actually,
Oh yeah,
Oh,
he has been full surprise. I will say, like, I feel like he is going to be one of those characters that is, I wouldn't say underperformed, underrated, an underrated character of the series. There's a lot of characters. This is very much an ensemble series here. But yeah, I like from everything from his like little witty kind of comebacks to certain things that people have said to like the idea where he's literally trained in combat and can defend himself by just like unarmed combat is just, and he can pilot a ship. Like this guy can do everything, and it makes sense because when you're 26,000 years old, I mean, you pick up something every once in a while.
oh yeah, I loved his entire like character arc in this series, and like you said, this whole scene was so good, like between him and Ezra, just the meaning of it. And I like, again, I mentioned it before, even going clear back to our second season of Mandalorian, like the way like Dave includes fans and then general audience people. I think he's done a really good job of it because you could watch that as like our parents, and they'll be like, oh yeah, that's another Jedi. Kanan was, or Kanan's or Ezra's master or whatever. Like you can get that, but for obviously us who are Rebels fans and fans of the books and whatever, like it means even more. So it's cool that like they found a pretty good crossroads of including, say, like the more normie people versus just only like, hey, you had to have watched all four seasons of this show to get it. So like it's cool that they've done it in a way like that. I really appreciated that. And then like you mentioned, Milton, the look of the lightsabers, I think that's one of the more underrated things of this entire series. I think the way they've like animated the way the lightsabers look in general, whether it be Ahsoka's, Sabine's, Ezra's, Balin's, Shin's, like I think the lightsabers have all looked really, really good.
right? Well, I think it's because they use that fluorescent,
Yep.
like it's the fluorescent lightings that they use to actually fight with. It's not
Hmm.
like, and again, I like the way the prequels were shot, and even like the old trilogy, what they have the kendo sticks with the wrap on it.
Yep.
That's just
Yeah.
how technology was, and obviously they have the reflection. They want the light to be more reflective off the face, which makes sense. If I had a real lightsaber, the light would be so it'd be so much it would legit reflect off my face, and you can't really look into it directly. So no, I like how they've upped their game with it. They seem more dangerous to handle, as it should, because no normal person should pick up a lightsaber, in
No.
that universe. So it makes sense. So, but no, I think they look fine for the most part.
Oh yeah. So getting into the action here, I mean, we have really cool moments of force abilities, plenty throughout this episode, starting with the TIE fighters coming down on the little transports, and what are they called? Ben, I always forget the name. Something with a Nogi or Nobi or Navi.
Oh,
Uh,
Nodi.
I'm naming every other possible,
Yeah, the Nodi
option.
people.
The Nodi people continue to shine. They got that great kind of comedic timing, and they're a fun addition to the Star Wars universe. I'm looking forward to seeing a lot more of them whenever this story continues in whatever fashion. But yeah, it's cool seeing Ezra. It's cool seeing Ahsoka just teaming up using the Force, and just I like the general kind of camaraderie, right? Like when it comes to the Rise of Skywalker, say what you will about that whole thing, but I think what Star Wars does best, one of the things, is showing teamwork and showing our heroes using their different kind of strengths to bound together to create like an unstoppable force. Even going into charging on the Howler wolf creatures into the Imperial Star Destroyer, and then you're seeing literally three Jedi. You're seeing three Jedi. I don't care like what the thematic level of this story is at this point. It's just really freaking cool to see a Mandalorian Jedi with the helmet on with the green lightsaber, and then somebody with white lightsabers, and somebody that looks like a warrior monk with a blue lightsaber standing side by side, just taking out stormtroopers like nothing. That to me thrills me. Um, so I don't know. We could talk about this segment if we want.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was like a really cool action sequence. It was neat seeing them, you know, like I don't know, just jump into the action like that. Like you said, the TIE fighters, them riding on the creatures with their lightsabers out, like all that stuff. It's just, it's kind of like peak Star Wars, like, our heroes getting into battle and going with it. And like, I know it was like a critique of yours, like a little bit, Chris, about like the, charging the Star Destroyer, but like to me, I didn't mind it because it was like, hey, they were on a time crunch. It's like either we charge or we wait here and plan, and then by that time it's too late. So like, I don't mind it, and it kind of like felt, like Ezra's character to like be up for something like that because he kind of was like an improviser in Rebels to a degree.
Yeah, you're right.
So like I didn't mind it, and again, like the guy that plays Ezra is just great as Ezra. Like he is so good at that character. So yeah, for me, I thought it was really cool just seeing them like jump into combat with the TIE fighters, with the stormtroopers, and like you said, them just like you have. I liked how they had a disparity still between Ahsoka and Ezra, and then Sabine compared to them. Like Sabine was clearly still nowhere near as skilled as Ezra and Ahsoka were with a lightsaber compared to her just using normal weapons. So I really liked that they still had that disparity versus just like, I don't know, letting her just hop into a normal Jedi flow and go with it.
Yeah, I like that because you see this stuff online, you're gonna see the Mary Sue this and Mary Sue that.
Yep.
I don't agree with that in this case because she's getting hit by the damn blaster bolts. Like,
yeah, if she didn't have her Mandalorian armor, she'd be dead.
She'd be dead. So we know the effectiveness of that because thanks to the Mandalorian himself, Din Djarin getting blasted quite a few times. But it was cool. It's like, all right, just stick to your strength. Use the blasters right now. And she just goes, and it's a good kind of addition, a good teamwork compromise. It's like you got the person behind the swordsman shooting at the other guys as he's defending her. So it's a good tactic. I liked seeing that. What about you, Mill? What'd you think about the overall kind of flow of this little battle, this little skirmish, the action, and all that?
You mean regarding the TIE fighters, correct? Let's make sure we're clear on that.
TIE fighters are
Yeah.
just like when they fight the stormtroopers, just like the general teamwork, I guess,
Oh,
of
I
the whole
mean,
thing.
oh
How
yeah,
they work
okay.
as a
So
team.
when it comes to the TIE fighter attack, it was cool to see them work as a tandem. I mean, it was cool to highlight their strengths and to see that it wasn't easy for them. And obviously, their ship was damaged enough to where it hindered their mission, which I appreciated. It could have easily been the old trope of, oh no, they took a couple hits, but they'll still make it in time.
Yeah.
But there's consequences to that, so they had to adjust their plan, which led to them get on those riding those wolves or whatever they're
Mm-hmm.
called. I don't know, But it was cool to see how that the Mandalorian, the Jedi, I guess the Gray Jedi or quote unquote
Yep.
whoever she is now, like working together as a team. I thought the battle with the stormtroopers, or I guess quote unquote the death zombie troopers, was fascinating. Obviously, if you read the canon books, that is something that does exist. So it
Oh
was
yeah.
cool to see that. I thought that action was very well done. I had to go back and rewatch it again because I was like, why is Ahsoka moving a certain way?
Hmm.
I'm like, she kind of felt clunky a little bit,
Yeah.
like the first time I watched it. And I had to go back and rewatch it, and I was like, okay, she does move fairly smoothly. And I think she was just doing she was blocking things on purpose. She wasn't trying to like quote unquote kill him, if that makes
Yep.
sense. She's trying to like just dodge, parry, uh, cause distraction, that type of thing. So it made sense about her movements, and also we got the scene in the beginning of the episode with her practicing these moves with the hologram with Anakin. So I
Yeah.
was like, okay, that makes sense. It tied into that.
This is neat. I mean, the more I think about, the more I like it. It's just the idea about seeing somebody that is not so truly gifted in the Force. Like we see Luke, we see the most powerful Jedi's of all time because they are just naturally gifted. These people don't have to work as hard because they have it in their bloodline. They got, they just have it through their legacy is why they're so strong, right? You got Luke, you got Leia, you got Ahsoka that was trained during the Clone Wars, so of course she's going to be powerful. But it's neat seeing how somebody would train during the fall that the Jedi Order had been fallen for 20, 30, 25 years at the point that Sabine would be training. So to see how the average person could just train so hard to be able to get it done, I like seeing that.
Right. Yeah. No, it was. Are you referring to the hologram tapes? I assume.
Yeah, well, I mean, I
With
just mean her journey in general, like from the first episode of
oh
this
yeah,
season to seeing how
yeah.
she still is not infallible, but she's having those moments of triumph and those moments where she's using the Force for the first time, and it's a good payoff, I think.
Right. Okay, I got you. Yeah, that makes sense. But like to go back to your point about seeing how people train, like it was cool that we got to see Ahsoka go back to the basics
Oh yeah.
of her training. You know, she talked about how like Anakin made like 20 recordings or something, and in which
Mm-hmm.
if you watched Rebels, you saw that Ezra was using the same recordings or a different version of them when he found the holograms of Anakin showing him like different parries and that type of thing. So it was cool to see that they tied it all in to that particular show and go canon, but also see her go back to the basics of like, all right, I need to just slow down, really just tap into it. The fundamentals of like playing sports. What they always teach you in sports. You know, go back to the basics. If you're trying to reset yourself, your footwork, your eye level, your pad level in football, you know, keep your head up when it comes to certain things like that are fundamentally good for what you're trying to do when it comes to sports. When being a Jedi is probably centering yourself, you know, swift strokes, how she was doing it, but it was cool to see her revert back to that. So I kind of liked it.
Mm. Yeah. And in the order of this episode, I guess we'll just go ahead and start with it. And that was a topic of one of the videos I posted earlier in the week, was just the idea that we have Death Troopers for real this time. Not just Death Troopers for the reputation in Rogue One of just really deadly trooper type, but actual
Yeah.
undead troopers risen from the
Right.
grave.
What book was that in? I can't
Yeah,
remember.
Erin Daly in the chat actually is mentioning it. She says that's one of the first Star Wars books she read. Um, it's old Legends expanded universe book.
Mm.
It's
Um,
literally called Death
yeah,
Troopers.
it's literally
Is
called
that what it's
Death
called?
Troopers,
Yeah, it's
and
called Death Troopers. It's the one where it's the stormtrooper, and then the eye has like a hook shoved through it on the cover.
Mm.
yeah,
Isn't
it's
it like
pretty
doesn't
nasty.
some like type of virus? Then they get like
Yep,
a virus or something?
Yep,
yeah, the Blackwing virus.
Okay. All right.
yep. It's a great book. I mean, the cool thing about that book, like I'm so glad they like hopped into like this, take the leap with zombie troopers because like you mentioned, Chris, in your video, like, hey, Star Wars has so many things in it, like why not include them in a cool way, like zombies in a cool way. So
Yep.
I like that they like jumped in and did it. And it makes like the general people happy because it's like, oh cool, a zombie in Star Wars. And then for like us, like big time Star Wars fans, it's like, oh man, like You're getting flashbacks to the Death Troopers book, and it's just like I would have never in a million years thought we would have actually. I don't know. I mean, I guess like for me, anyways, it would be like almost like fan fiction to like have Death Troopers in Star Wars after reading that book. When you read that book, it's like, oh man, we'll never see this in live action because it feels too like fan fiction-y. And then Dave does it in like such a cool way, and it's like, holy smokes, like we actually got straight up Death Troopers, and it makes you wonder, like the future implications for that, what they're gonna do, because like just purely speculating, but it feels like maybe they are gonna go that route, Chris, that you and me speculated on a couple weeks ago when it was just you and me on here, like are they gonna go the route of maybe the Night Sisters going to like Imperial battlegrounds, like resurrecting a ton of dead troopers or something? Because like I think that's where they're heading, because this is just like the small taste of it, but man, I loved it. And then I'm not sure if you guys caught it, but like the one that was going at Sabine, its face mask was busted, and you could see it was like a zombie in it. So it was like, oh man, this is awesome.
So that leads me to believe then, Ben, because there's no way that trooper was decomposed in a matter of minutes, because I was under the assumption, like, he said, okay, the men have volunteered, like, you may begin the ritual, and then they did their chant, their mother chant and all that, and then those troopers rose up and started attacking. So I guess some of these guys that were already like beforehand were already zombies, I guess.
I took it as like these men volunteered to like give their lives, or like they knew they were going to go into battle to
Yeah.
die. But like they knew, like, okay, we're going to die, but we'll be brought back in like a zombie form. Like it's kind of like they knew that their life was it is what it is. Like there's a higher purpose.
Yeah, kind of like
That's how I took it.
well, kind of like us, with say with IDs having the whole, you can I volunteer to be an organ donor, I guess, like maybe it's something like that where it's like, hey, when you guys die, like, do you want to volunteer to be a zombie for us? And like, of course, what are you going to do to Thrawn? Like say no, and they'll probably just kill you anyways and do it anyways. So like,
Right.
it's cool that they like incorporated like a concept like that into this whole thing.
Well,
Go on, Milton.
right. Here's my thing though too, and this goes back to, I mean, and this is positive talk right here about Dave Filoni. Look, we all like him. We all love him as a creator. He's pretty much like the apprentice to George Lucas. Something that I do appreciate about him is that when he brings an idea, whether it's from Legends or from canon, he uses it in a way that's, I don't want to describe it. He uses it in a way that's definitely like the right way to use it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's not like, Ezra and them standing in the middle of the field and hands popping up from the ground or something. Um,
Man.
Dave did it in a really nice way. That's a really good point, Milton. And also another point on Dave like bringing his ideas like into like the on-screen form. I think one of the best things about Dave that he took from George is just like the ability to go bold with an idea. Like, because, say what you want about the sequels one way or another, but for the most part, they're pretty safe for the most part, storytelling wise. But like Dave, like there is some safe stuff obviously in Ahsoka. But, bringing zombies into Star Wars, that's like a bold thing. Like George Lucas would be like, hey, we're just going to do this. And if the fans like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't. Like, like he did with Darth Maul with the spider legs. Hey, Maul has spider legs now. Boom. So like, stuff like that. Or like even the Ahsoka Anakin stuff. Like Dave, George was just like, nah, Ahsoka's Anakin's apprentice now. So like, I really appreciate that Dave doesn't mind to like take bold chances like that. So yeah, that's like another big thing. Like I was thoroughly surprised that we actually got zombie troopers.
Yeah, let's not be mistaken or forget that this wasn't the first time we've seen zombies in Star Wars, right? We have a couple iterations. I guess you can count the Brainworms episode where they have I think it's Barasafi and Ahsoka are on that cruiser, and they have this worm that goes into clones, and it basically makes them like zombies. But then you also have the undead with the Night Sisters raising the Night Sisters to fight the Separatists, and the same thing happens in Jedi Fallen Order. So it's been it's been already presented to us, but it's cool to actually, see it happen again. And I feel like the depiction and the performance of the actors in the stormtrooper costumes was really unsettling. Like just like the audible noise they're making, very creepy. Just like the way they're shrugging off blaster bolts, like it's just like they're flinching them, like it's not even affecting them. Like Death Troopers are getting impaled with lightsabers and still continuing to fight like nothing happened. So it was just like this onslaught, and it makes sense. I like thematically why this is the case for Thrawn. Like this makes sense. Like Thrawn, whatever threat has already been out there in that new galaxy, has whittled down his forces. He's had no other opportunity to get more people to fight for him. It's in a new galaxy, so he had to resort to the Night Sister magic to just keep his people going. Death by death by death. They keep coming back to fight again and again and again. Um, Whether or not they probably don't know who they are at that point. I'm assuming if it's like The Walking Dead or any other zombie, you just are doing stuff. You don't have any brain activity. Um, so it makes sense. I like the idea of like the Thrawn using tactics for purely survival sake.
Yeah. I mean, it is. It's nice getting Thrawn, using his resources that are available in that way. And also, of course, we know like our main characters, are probably going to do well in these situations. But it did feel like there was stakes. It did feel like, hey, we for sure, we don't know if Sabine or Ezra are for sure making out. Of course, Ahsoka would make it out, because she's the title character. But like Sabine or Ezra, like who knows? Maybe they could have knocked off one of those two, like trying to like sacrifice themselves to like let the other two get out or something. So like it was pretty cool that they it felt like there was actual stakes because like when the troopers weren't going down with the lightsabers and the blasters, it was like, oh man, what are they gonna do to get
Yep.
out of here?
Yeah, there is that moment of panic where it's just like, run. You got nothing else you can do. Just run, get the heck out of there, and start hitting the switches to take down the doors. It was a
Yeah.
little bit of survival horror, like Star Wars game or something for a moment there.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's continue on talking, I guess, about just the duel. Let's talk about the duel. All right, we got this duel between Morgan Elsbeth and Ahsoka, the rematch of the century. Maybe, I don't know. It did make sense for them
All
to
right.
fight again. You know, it did make sense for them to fight
Rematch of
again.
the century. I wouldn't go that far.
Well, that this is exactly. I'm being a little bit sarcastic because for
Okay.
me, I guess there wasn't as much of an emotional kind of vibe with
Right.
this battle. It was kind of
Yeah.
fighting for fighting's
So this is
sake.
part. So this is part of my when I mentioned how it was off to me a little bit.
Yeah.
There's two parts of it. Obviously, the Balin and what's his apprentice's name? I
Shin.
forget. Shin. Like that was kind of a weird thing to me in his finale, and obviously this fight because there really wasn't no emotional weight. Now, does every fight need to be an emotional weight of a fight? No. Like we've had just nonsensical blaster fighting and saber fighting in Star Wars for no reason, but it's in there, but there's really no weight to it. And with this one, I felt like the stakes were there, but then they weren't because like we know like uh what's your name was there to kind of like be a distraction
Yep.
Morgan
so
Elsbeth.
they can get away. Yeah,
Yeah.
Elsbeth so she can like get away. But it was just weird how they just didn't really like do the traditional like talk some shit while they were like fighting. Usually in these saber fights,
Oh yeah.
someone's saying something and
Yup.
someone's triggering someone's emotions and I was kind of surprised like how it just was. Ugh. It wasn't a bad fight. It just kind of happened. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it was just so off-putting. Like Thrawn just saying, "Oh, you're gonna basically just stay behind to just buy us more
Yeah.
time for the Empire." For I do like how she said for
Right.
Dathomir is like, "Oh yeah,
For that I
deep
was I
down,
was kind of hoping she would give some
yeah,
some pushback a little bit, like
yeah,
because I know like she is there to serve a higher power. Like she's very in tune with that. However, like I wish she would have gave some pushback towards that, and also like maybe they could have weaseled some dialogue or information in there whenever they did fight her and Ahsoka about something that was like that would have been like, oh my god, I can't believe like she said that. Like maybe that put Ahsoka over the top or something. Maybe she should have referenced Anakin or something. I don't know. It just felt like it was just a fight.
Yeah. Yeah, for me with the fight, I thought it was good. Just because I'm more along the lines of like, hey, it served its purpose, like say for like from Thrawn's point of view, like maybe not us as like say a potential viewing audience, because we
Right.
want like some of the shit talking and stuff like that, like Anakin, Obi-Wan, Vader in Episode 4, whatever, like, but like for this, I thought it kind of like served its purpose of like, hey, we see the whole for the Empire thing. Like even a few episodes ago when those like in the shipyards, like those type of things, like those people just like still being like loyal to the Empire. So
Right.
like the fact that she like sacrificed herself for the Empire, like it makes sense like for a character working for the Empire. But I do think the reason like I mentioned earlier to start this podcast was I mean, if this plays out this way, we can definitely look back on the finale as foreshadowing. But the fact that she said for Dathomir, like I really think they're setting up the Night Sisters to be the Nogri people from the Heir to the Empire trilogy, just because you know Thrawn basically uses the Nogri people to terrorize the galaxy, and then basically by the end of the trilogy, he tells he basically is saying a bunch of stuff to like his bodyguard Rook. He basically says, your species is like disposable. You guys are here just to serve us, and that's it, and die. Like, and eventually, spoiler, Rook stabs him in his office and kills him in his chair, and it's basically like, that foreshadowing got built up though from the very first book, because like the very first interaction in the first book, Heir to the Empire, in that book, you have Thrawn like basically degrade the Nogri people in front of Rook. So, like that slowly builds and builds and builds over time. And I feel like that's what they're going to probably end up doing with the Night Sisters. Like it's going to be a callback to like this moment with Morgan Elsbeth where it's just going to build and build and build. And maybe eventually we get like the Night Sisters overtaking Thrawn, or like, who knows, maybe long term we have the Night Sisters turn the zombie troopers on Thrawn or something. And it's one of those type of things, like bad guy just getting overwhelmed
Yep.
by zombies, just tearing him apart. Like I could see that type of thing happening, just because they've taken so many inspirations from that trilogy. Like I mean, even the zombies, for instance, like that's kind of similar to the whole mindless clones from the Heir to the Empire trilogy. So it's just like there's a lot of similarities. But yeah, so like that's kind of like my thoughts on the Morgan Elsbeth fight. Plus, like I think there's going to be more implications long term for Morgan Elsbeth than, or not Morgan Elsbeth, but more for like the Night Sisters and Thrawn than what meets the eye just from this scene alone.
Yeah, I agree, and I guess we could just go into the ending here, or the long kind of drawn out, like multiple characters. Ben, what did you think about the ending in general? Whether it be like the conclusion with Ezra arriving at the base, Ahsoka as Sabine seeing Anakin's Force ghost, Thrawn arriving on Dathomir, Shin, you know, leading these bandits, and you have Balin obviously finding like these Mortis gods. Like, how'd you think of this ending sequence? Excuse me, that
There
wraps
was a
everything up.
Yeah, there was a lot of like wow moments for me, because it was like, first of all, like I mentioned to start the podcast, the Thrawn bad guy speech to get out of there was excellent. Loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. Like
Yep.
I just Lars nailed it. And then the fact they went to Dathomir is like kind of the home base. I'm interested to see the implications with that, with the coffins, what they're gonna do, blah 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 blah. Like there's a lot of implications for that. And then now we have like the story threads of like, I think this is where we get into like say the season 2 talk, even like Ahsoka telling Sabine, you're right where you need to be. I think this is more meaning of, hey, they're gonna have to deal with some stuff with Balin with the Mortis gods. Because like Balin, talked so much earlier in the season talking about wanting like end the cycle and blah blah blah, and then now it shows him there. So it's like, what is he gonna like try to take out the Mortis gods or something? Like what is going on here? So I think that's where they could be heading with that, maybe. And then, the ending with Hera and Ezra was an interesting one, because so I've watched this episode twice now, and at first I was like, man, it's like, okay, that was an interesting ending. Like, it wasn't like super joyous. Like, this was definitely our
Yeah.
Empire Strikes Back of these Star Wars shows. Like it definitely ended. Bad guys winning, good guys kind of not winning. Um, but like I saw like a lot of people like, uh, you know, uh, like not being too fond of the Ezra and Hera scene. But then when you think about it, say in more like really expanded out more, if you think about it, like Hera knew what like the implications were to go find Ezra was for Sabine and Ahsoka. So the thing is now, like the reason Hera wasn't so excited or anything, really, for that matter, is because if you think about it from her point of view, she's like, okay, Ezra's back, but that must mean
Yeah, Thrawn is
Sabine,
back.
Sabine and Ahsoka are dead, and Thrawn is probably back in our galaxy now. Because like it was getting alluded to, like she's been warning the rebellion about this. Thrawn's coming back, Thrawn's coming back, Thrawn's coming back, and the only way Thrawn can come back is if they find Ezra, and then now they find Ezra, so that must mean Thrawn's back. So now that's like Hera's realization, like, oh shit, like we're gonna be in a lot of trouble soon. So I thought that was a pretty cool way to end it after I watched it a second time and thought about it, like say from that angle.
Yeah, Milton, just general thoughts on how things ended.
I okay, so I'll start with Ezra. So it made sense that he would throw on the outfit, get on the ship, because that's what he did all the time in the show. Like if you knew Rebels, that's consistently who he is. He's consistently consistent about
Mm-hmm.
always trying to blend in and do something. So I thought that was a cute way to tie that into there. It was cool to see him reunite with Hera, and I think it makes sense what Ben's saying. Oh, if he's back, then we know Thrawn has to be back. Obviously, he's going to fill in the gaps about what happened to Sabine and to Ahsoka. As for the overall ending in general, I loved how Thrawn said what he said to her about
Mm-hmm.
to Ahsoka about knowing her master and anticipating her moves. I thought that was a clutch move. That was kind of a boss move, and I
Yeah.
liked that just because it's like okay, that made sense. Um, I didn't like the way we just kind of didn't involve Balin and Shin in this episode. I thought that was kind of weak. I felt we could have done something with them just
Mm-hmm.
because literally he talked about, well, we're here for a purpose, and we're here to do X, Y, and Z,
Yep.
and then you don't see him for maybe what 2 minutes, maybe not even 2 minutes. I felt that was kind of a waste because he has been
Yeah.
a strong character
Oh yeah.
throughout this whole season. So I thought that was probably the weakest part of the ending for sure. I know if you know Star Wars, if you know Clone Wars, yes, we saw the mountain of like the father and the son and of the daughter. Her head was broken. Now, obviously, we got to see what's that bird called?
Morai.
Morai.
That follow, yeah, we got to see that bird that follows Ahsoka, which is pretty much the daughter. Um, Again, I like the ending. It wasn't horrible. I just felt there's things that could have been wrapped up better. Obviously, if we get a season two, which is what it sounds like, hopefully those parts will be told definitively as we move forward.
Yeah, yeah, I agree a lot with what both of you said. I mean, yeah, the Hera Ezra, yeah, you can understand like as happy of a scene as that could be, just the implications of wait, why? Where is Sabine? Where's Ahsoka? Oh no, you just let out one of the worst threats the galaxy had ever seen. Back after these 5 or 6 years of peace, we're gonna be thrust into war again. Like, oh, the somber kind of feelings she and the rest of the crew on the home one must be feeling right now. And then yeah, the Shin stuff is like okay, yeah, like why didn't she go to the Empire? Like that was a huge jump. It's like last we seen her, she just kind of like by herself. She was supposed to go back to the Empire, but I
Right.
guess she just had a change of fate. Now she's gonna throw up her lightsaber like I don't know, some big leader and be like, "Hey, you're gonna work for me now." Like that was okay. That's interesting. Um, I was really expecting, fan theory crap, but like, oh yeah, like maybe Ahsoka would take her under her ring or something like that. Like she would feel
Mhm.
lost and disillusioned. And there's still like, yeah, there's still a lot more work to do with her character.
See,
The little we did get with her character was very interesting. She's obviously, has a lot to learn still, although she is prospecting to be powerful, Ben.
oh yeah, I think with her character especially, it just it seems like this is going to be like our rough version of Mara Jade that they're going to
Mm-hmm.
be doing in the universe, because like, you think about it, like and Mara had no backstory basically in Star Wars other than being the Emperor's hand, and you don't know anything else about her. And Shin, we have no clue she is, no identification on her lightsaber, nothing, etc. Like, and then she was on the bad side. Now she's in between. And there was still hints, like, even in the prior episodes when she was near Ahsoka, like, she was definitely doubtful on maybe even joining Ahsoka. So, like, she's conflicted. So I think this is going to be kind of like Dave's rough adaptation of her, especially with, Timothy Zahn hanging around. Like, how could you not have him around and not have that character be brought up?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There's a lot of room for some really good stories in publishing. That's all I'll say about this.
Yep.
Like, give us that comic series about Thrawn and Ezra's exile for those 9 or 10 years on Peridia. Give us that master apprentice relationship, maybe like a 5 comic issues, or like a novel with Balin. Leaving the order, become a mercenary, finding, like, give us that whole story, or make a trilogy of books with that. Like, there's just so much rich characters that they didn't have to put in this series, but they did. And there's a lot of
Yep.
great gaps that can be told with really nice stories to help boost up other things.
Yeah. One thing's for sure, though, like, coming out of this finale, I really like, at this point, my number one wish list moving forward into the next season of this show. Let's say on the assumption the next season happens. But I feel like they for sure need to like get someone who like looks like Ray Stevenson, or like, just a good enough actor to play Balin, because Balin I feel like is way too important of a character just to leave aside like a mystery and just, never go back to it again. Like you mentioned earlier, Chris, like, we don't want that storyline just to stop there with that one shot and then never ever get it addressed ever again. So like, I really hope they go back to it. And like, if I was Lucasfilm, I would just be like, hey guys, like, we know the like realities of the real world. Like, we can't, so like, we want to continue this character, and like, here's a good actor to replace him. Like I just wish, you could do it in a very respectful way. Like, it's not like it's like disrespectful doing that. So like, I really hope they go in that direction. And I still can't get out of my head. We talked about it a little bit last week, Milton, when you weren't on, but like, man, like Gerard Butler would be a perfect Balin, I think. Like,
Yeah.
after I seen that comparison, I'm like, man, I can't like unsee that now.
That would be a good
But
match, I think.
I'm hoping they
No,
continue his
I didn't
character.
think about him, honestly. I was thinking of the guy that played Ray Donovan. I
Oh,
forget his name. Yeah, but no, that'd be good. You're right.
Yeah. So there you go. Do you guys have any last thoughts on this episode, this
um,
finale?
yeah, I mean, I'll just give my overall thoughts
Mm-hmm.
of this episode and series, I guess, and I'll try to sum it down a little bit. But overall, I thought the episode was solid. There were some ups and downs with it, but it was good for what it was. I think you're right, Ben. I think it served its purpose in a lot of ways. I think just because we are anticipating a season two, which I think they've really hinted to that. I'm hopeful to see how they conclude a lot of open storylines and how they're going to move things forward into whether it's season two or into a movie. Um, Overall, I thought this was a solid series. I thoroughly enjoyed this series. I think it's one of the more rewatchable series. I think once I sit down and digest all 8 episodes within like a 3 day period, I think I'll
Yeah.
learn to appreciate
Mm-hmm.
the direction of it compared to being a weekly show. So overall, I thought the series was solid. I thought the finale was solid too.
Yeah.
It isn't my favorite Star Wars
Mm-hmm.
series, but it's not one of my worst either.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's it's definitely a marked improvement from Mando season 3 for me.
But,
I really
well, I
liked.
think.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry. I'll let you finish. I'm sorry. I think it's overall this particular show in particular, and I'm going to throw Marvel in this. With all the Marvel shows that we've gotten and all the Star Wars shows, this is up. This is one of the better Disney focused shows that they've made, and
oh
I'm
yeah.
combining both those properties just because it was thoroughly consistent. It was thoroughly consistent for what the characters are and what the story they was pushing for. So yeah, that's why I said it's actually not that bad.
Yeah, every week they manage to really push the story, like the plot forward. Um, and they push that going like the momentum, the pacing. I mean, my overall like criticism of the season in general, and it's happened with some of the series too, is just the idea that there sometimes doesn't seem to be as much focus on the characters and the story of the characters, and it's mainly like, let's get from plot A to point B. Okay, we know we need to get Thrawn to the known galaxy. That's like going to be number one on our map for what we're doing this season. We know that Sabine will eventually have to use the Force. Cool. We know that they're eventually going to have to mend their relationship. Okay, we'll do that. Like, it felt like there were like boxes kind of checked off, but I would have really liked more introspection from Sabine's standpoint. More of the relationship between Ahsoka and her. I just, for a show called Ahsoka, I feel like it was way more of an ensemble, more than any other series. Like it just didn't focus enough on her. Besides, like episode 5, obviously with her and Anakin, this really wasn't just her show, you know.
Oh yeah. Yeah, to a degree, yeah. I think though the reason why that's like a running issue, I think with all these shows, Ahsoka, the Mandalorians turned out to like be brand recognition eventually after the first couple episodes and like Grogu going viral. But like Ahsoka has that issue, Andor had that issue because like who on the street knows Andor or even Ahsoka? Like not very many people.
Mm-hmm.
Like but if you name Andor, I don't even know, Rise of the Empire or I don't know, whatever. Like just some more generic Star Wars title, or even like this show. Like what if this would be blah 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 New Republic blah 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 something, New Republic start of a new war. I don't know, but just something more generic like for Ahsoka or Andor, like those type of shows, in my opinion, would have got better viewership overall. Like for all of them, like that's just a running issue with I think the Disney era. I mean, look, Loki, it's a one-word title. Like we all know Loki, but still, like why not name it something? But like, I just think that's like a Disney thing more than anything. But yeah, like for me when it comes to this season and the finale, I thought was really good. And then overall, I think the season was just really good as a whole. It was like what I was expecting, I guess I would say, from Dave. Like like Dave's style of storytelling, he did what like Dave Filoni did what Dave Filoni does. Like the stuff we got in this series was pretty much what I expected Dave to do, in my opinion. And then there were some surprises, like the Death Troopers. Like, we weren't expecting that at all.
Yeah.
So, like, it was nice getting some of those type of things, like him going bold and just saying, hey, let's do it. So, like, it's cool getting those type of things. For me, though, overall, I would say this is, like, my favorite Star Wars series, like, under Disney, like, in terms of live action. Like, I would have this above the other ones. Just because, like, I think as a whole, I enjoy this season the most. Like if I would watch one full season of any of these shows, I would watch this one start to finish over any of the other ones, because it hits some solid character stuff, some good action. You get some wows with Thrawn and the Death Troopers and whatever, all that stuff. You get Anakin, like, so it checks off your Star Wars boxes. And then so for me as a whole, I think this is the best Star Wars show under Disney right now. But obviously there are like moments that are like bigger in terms of like, say, the Star Wars fandom. Like the Thrawn being in live action was like about as big as it gets. But like I think like nothing short of like, I don't even know what they could do. Us seeing like the original big three on screen. Like I don't think anything will ever top Star Wars fandom. When Luke came out at the end of Mando season 2, I don't think anything will ever top like that level of like shock and surprise, because it was never leaked, never talked about, and like boom, it just shocked the world when that happened. So like for me, that episode still is like, I would say more like the crown jewel, like the top moment of Star Wars Disney. Mm-hmm. But this show as a whole, I think, is more like well-rounded and just overall appealing to me as on a rewatch scale of like, hey, if I'm going to watch one series, I'm going to watch Ahsoka over, say, God forbid, Mando season 3 or something.
No, that's good for summing it up. I mean, I totally get what from your first standpoint. I
Yeah.
mean, they definitely did spare no expense on this. The flight action looked great. Some of the best lightsaber duels
I
in
do have
this.
one thing to
Yeah.
raise though. And like this is one thing too. I'm sure Milton might have something to say about this. Can we please get an answer from somebody at Lucasfilm? How was this show in the volume and Kenobi was in the volume and one show at points looks like a movie budget and the other show looks like it was like a fan film budget? That's what I want answered. Like how does Kenobi look so different? Like that's what I kept thinking throughout this series. It was like, how are these two shot in the same location and one looks wildly different, you know?
Yeah, don't give me.
Yeah, it was a little strange. Hey Milton, I think you're having some issue with the mic. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you,
I can
Chris,
hear
but
you.
oh, okay, there you go. You're back,
Okay, I
Milton.
think
You
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 cut
got
out.
muted for a second.
Sorry, my mom just called me. That's why. But no, like I said, don't get me started. Like that whole volume stuff, it's ridiculous. But hey, they're pushing the envelope. I'm not even going to trip. Here's the
Yep.
thing, though. Like you're right. I think that the reason why this show stands out is because of the way it was visually shot and how it felt like we were in a lived universe, and it felt like it had a lot of credibility for the way it looked. So I do appreciate that.
Oh yeah. So going back to you, Ben, what would you give this episode out of 10?
Yeah, for me, I would say, this episode did its job in many ways, answering questions, leaving some, questionable points to like move forward to like ask questions about, and then, giving us some cool sequences, and then, there were some like little tidbits. Like I said, some of the stuff was like just interesting choices they made. Like, hey, we're gonna literally give you 10 seconds of Balin. It was like, okay. Um, but other than like that, like I think the episode was a really good way to end the first season. I'm going under the assumption, say there's a second season. So for me, I would say the episode as a whole would be a 9. And then I would say the season as a whole for me would be I would say a 9.25. I'd say it's the best one yet.
All right, I'll throw it over to you, Milton.
I mean, overall score for me, I think this goes for both the series and for the finale.
All right.
I think it's overall probably like an 8,
Mm-hmm.
8.25.
Mm-hmm.
I say about an 8.25 just because I thoroughly enjoyed this show. I thoroughly enjoyed the majority of the episodes. I don't think there was one particular. There might have been one episode I didn't like. I probably was like maybe episode 3 or 4. I can't remember, but um, I didn't
Probably
think
3.
this series was bad overall, and I thought the finale was solid. Had its up and downs, yes, but I think an 8.5 is very reasonable for what we got. I think all the Hayden Christensen stuff was amazing. Like we just got to give him his flowers because he is Star Wars, man. Him and Ewan McGregor, like I can watch them all day do Star Wars, and I'd be smiling ear to ear. So
That
overall, I love what Dave did with the show for the most part. Looking forward to season 2. I'm looking forward to his movie. So Dave, you have my confidence still. So 8.25.
There you go. And for me, I'm gonna kind of stick around the 8 as well. This episode, I give it an 8 out of 10. I think there was some room to tie up things a little bit tighter, a little bit more emotion, and it was quite predictable. So I was hoping for some more stakes, some more. Well, there was plenty of stakes. I guess I said that wrong, but maybe more like revelations or something for a finale. I think I need a little bit more oomph. But as for the season itself, I think Milton, you pretty much nailed it on the head. Where there wasn't a lot of wasted time. Every episode really had a point to deliver, so it did well in the 8 episodes it had. And yeah, I think I'm also, you know, and I'm gonna actually give it an 8.5 as a whole for a season.
Yeah.
I think
You know,
this episode brought it down from being maybe a 9, so I'll give it an 8.5. What's up, Ben?
Yeah, I'll throw in there real quick. I think one thing, guys, maybe I don't know if you both agree with me on this, but I do think what could have made the finale better as a whole would be like, to add to your stakes thing, Chris. Like you said, of course there are stakes in this episode, like but I think what they could have done was, we see the Hera and Ezra stuff, but then you get one more scene and it cuts to like the New Republic getting some type of an alert, like, oh my gosh, Thrawn's back, like, some type of a red alert scenario, like just something to add more panic to the season, and then it cuts. Like maybe if they would have done something like that, it could have made the finale feel that much more like urgent.
Yeah, you know what? That would have been a great thing to add. I mean, I think we're assuming Ezra's going to be like, "Hey, Thrawn is back, obviously," and
Yeah.
it's a whole nother thing. Like, how did he get away? Like, I guess as soon as like the Star Destroyer exited, he just like jumped ship and like hit hyperspeed now, go 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 before they
Yep.
catch on. And yeah, I would have really liked that hype. Can you imagine if we get like some big thing with like the fleet and they're like, "Oh crap." Like maybe just have like the Star Destroyer just like pop up out of nowhere and Thrawn reveals himself with this master plan. I mean, he did have kind of that thing going with the beam communication to Ahsoka, but yeah, that would have really upped it for me for sure. But
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, yeah.
I mean, technically, it's easy to reveal your master plan to people who are stranded in another galaxy. You know.
But yeah, I mean, Ahsoka, it came and went as fast. We were anticipating this one for a while, and man, those 7 weeks went pretty quick. And well, we're going to be in for a little bit of downtime as far as our show here. Like I said off the top, we're going to take a break next week, as I'll be in Comic-Con next week. And we'll pick it up for some probably a big hefty news episode. I would imagine I'm gonna have to kind of dive into the data banks and pull out some of the bigger stories because we've literally had no news that we covered in the last 7 weeks on this show. So we'll be playing catch up next week. And hey, you know what? Maybe if the actors settle with the studios in this upcoming week, I know they're still meeting. Maybe we'll get some big official news last minute before the show or something. But we hope that everything is all right. We're happy that the writers are getting what they want, and we're there to support the actors and get them what they want as well. As the landscape of things go up and around here. Everything's going up in price. Obviously, that means that everybody's got to get their due. It can't stay the same forever. So we're hoping that goes through. And then we'll just once again get into that good old rhythm of the Star Wars discussions. But I'm looking forward to also getting back into the pure Star Wars fandom discussions of just random topics to go off on.
Oh yeah, I mean, hey, just a hint for sometime in the future. We have a cool unboxing for me of a cool Star Wars item.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. We'll be having plenty of our week in Star Wars is coming up because we just wanted to talk. There was so much Star Wars Ahsoka that we were like, all right, we got to cut something out to keep this from being a 3-hour show. So,
Yep.
oh man, yeah. So you guys can find me, as I said, I'll be at New York Comic-Con. If you guys are listening, I know some of you in the chat might be going there as well. I'll be there all 4 days through Thursday through Saturday at the Javits Center. There's going to be Star Wars content on basically every day, so you'll probably bump into me if you go to any of the Star Wars panels. You might see me walking around. Please say hi. Also, we have the YouTube channel here where you can subscribe and get the latest notifications for when we go live every Sunday. We'll be off next week. Please go ahead and follow us on any kind of podcast app to listen to us on the go, whether it be at the gym, going to the grocery store, or whatever it is you're doing. You can listen to us rather than have the YouTube app open. If you prefer that, just search Outer Rim Transmission. Where can the people find you, Milton? And what will you be talking about? I already can kind of guess. Where can I get your sports commentary? We'll tell them that.
I mean, they can find me on Twitter at Milton Weber 7 or Instagram at Milton 7 Weber. I mean, Chris is right. Usually I talk about sports or my workout stuff on my social media platforms. Because, fly Eagles fly, 5-0. We beat the Rams tonight. even though they stressed me out the last couple weeks. It is what it is. Undefeated. Let's go. Um, no, like you can find me on the social media logins, so that's pretty cool. But this weekend I'll be in Ocean City, Maryland, celebrating with my brother for his bachelor party. So we're looking
Whoa.
forward to that. So obviously we're taking off a week. We're all busy. But yeah, follow me on social media. I like to post funny stuff and sports and anything with working out. So yeah, appreciate you guys listening.
All right, very good. Ben?
Yeah, I mean, you can find me on Twitter talking about Star Wars or fitness or the NFL at Real Ben Maynard, and you can find me sometimes posting about my fitness and workouts and stuff on Instagram at Real Ben Maynard.
There we go. We want to send a very special shout out to all the people that joined us in our lively chat this week. We had Small Bento Sakuro, Aaron Daly, The Lowdown Show, Christopher, Christopher Weber. I can't forget that name, obviously. And scrolling through, I think that was about it. Sorry if I'm missing anybody, but yes, you can. We had Sims as well, but yes, you can always join us every week here. We'd love to have your discussion. A lot of great points were brought up tonight, especially. So really appreciate that. But for Milton, for Ben, for Chris, aka Starrapter, maybe I'll see you this upcoming week at New York Comic Con. That's gonna do it for us here for Outer Rim Transmissions. Was episode 125. May the force be with you always. End transmission.